Okay, we've got a nice clean recording. We're sending it out to our live stream. We've got 200 and something people in front of us. I think we're probably ready to go when you are, Scott.
Okay, awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Northern California SBDC, Small Business Development Center's COVID-19 Small Business Update for May 6th. And we are all in this together. All right, so quick introduction. We're Northern California SBDC. We cover the the 38 most northern counties in the state of California. We're supported by SBA, Small Business Administration. We're also supported by the state of California of Economic Development called GoBiz under the governor's office. Because of our funding, we come to you, small business owners, at no cost. We offer one-on-one advising. We also offer webinars and workshops and events, educational, like today, also at no cost. Today, we do have a guest speaker, which we'll get to a little bit later. And then we're part of the Finance Center. My name is Scott Rogowski. I'm the director of the Finance Center for Northern California SBDC. We also have our associate director for the Finance Center, Sunita Maharaj. Also on the call today, we have the leadership team at Humboldt. We have Kristen Johnson, our director for Northern California SBDC Network. We have our associate director of partnerships, Ann Johnson Stromsberg. And then we also have Alan Montague, who's our webinar guy. And then we are very pleased to have Noah Broad from SBA out of the San Francisco district office. So lots of people on the call today, lots of good information. So our special guest speaker today is Emily Burgos. She's from the Small Business Finance Center, SBFC. She's also from a finance center, but a different one. And she is the manager there, and this is under iBank. So she's joining our Zoom town hall today. She's our special guest. She's going to be sharing some information around the SBFC, as well as California Small Business Loan Guarantee and Small Business Disaster Relief Loan Guarantee Program. So in our talk today, we're gonna now go to a short video to celebrate Small Business Week. And because it is Small Business Week, it's National Small Business Week. And what we're going to do is we really want to celebrate that. It wasn't canceled by SBA this week, but it was kind of pushed out maybe later this year sometime. So we're going to show this video, and then I'm going to go through my normal presentation. And then right before we get to the end, I'm going to have Emily Burgos speak about iBank and the special loan programs that they have. So I'm going to send it over to Alan, and he's going to show this video.
Since 1963, the first week of May is remembered as Small Business Week, a week we recognize and celebrate American entrepreneurship. Right now, the stakes could not be any higher for small businesses. The Northern California Small Business Development Centers want to assure you that we'll continue doing everything in our creative power to help your business survive the economic hardship and prepare for a more resilient reopen. The SBDC has been solely focused on supporting small businesses through expert advising, training, and helping small businesses connect with the capital to start, grow, and reinvent themselves. This is what we've done for the last 40 years, and we intend to see your business into the next 40. Keep up the good work, small business.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alan. Sorry, everybody. We'll get through this. All right. So, quick disclaimer: as we do on all calls, things are changing all the time. The information was correct when we put that together. When we put it together. So real quick, I wanted to say that our marketing team at Northern California SBDC Network, Aaron Phelps and his assistant, or Caitlin, did an excellent job putting that video together. And one of our advisors, Nate Downey on the Finance Center team, did the voiceover on it. So thank you very much to the marketing team at Northern California. It's a very touching and heartfelt video. Thank you. For this disclaimer, we don't want you to hesitate to apply for these loans that are available to you as they come available, whether it's through the EIDL or the Triple P. We don't have access to check the status on your SBA loan, but so we ask that you please be patient with SBA and us. For those of you that were in the queue with SBA before the web portal shut down, your loan is going to be processed and a case manager is going to be assigned to you. And then if you apply for the Triple P and you're waiting to hear back from your lender and they're taking a while to get back to you, you need to press hard and ask if you have an SBA loan number assigned to your loan so that you know it's going through the process and it will be able to get funded. The loan overview. So we know that these are the loans that exist today. There's the Triple P, the Paycheck Protection Program. There's Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL, and then the EIDL Advance. There's some SBA loan support that is out there for any of you that get a new loan with SBA, whether it be a startup loan, an equipment loan, or a building loan. SBA will pay the principal and interest for the first 6 months. There's also some California supported programs like the sales tax deferment, where you check with the state of California, as well as the iBank guarantee loans, which we'll get to a little bit later. So the forms that are needed for the Triple P and some of the calculations, these are the questions that we get asked over and over and over again. There's a universal form, which we have access to. It's also on the Treasury's website. Every lender uses that universal form, and then they have their own forms. These are some of the informations that you would need as a sole proprietor. Other entities, if you're a sole proprietor, which a lot of you that have been coming out of our referral sources and talking to us, is that a lot of you are 1099 contractors, self-employed, or a sole proprietor, which is all the same thing, depending on how you talk about it. But to calculate your loan amount, you need to look on line 31 on your Schedule C, and to calculate your forgivable part, you need to take your line 31 divided by 52 weeks, times it by 8, and that's what your forgivability part is. In addition to that, we also get asked, when does the 8 weeks start? So the 8 weeks start when you get the funding for Triple P. The 8 weeks start when you get the funding from Triple P, when it goes in your business bank account and you need to start spending it. You have 8 weeks from that day that you get funded. What's forgivable? The forgivability part of it is being written as we're speaking right now by the Treasury and SBA. So we don't have all the parameters and intricacies of what is forgivable, what's not. But a real quick scenario is it's a 75-25 rule. 75% or more is spent on payroll costs and 25% or less spent on rent, utilities, and interest debt payments. Will give you your best chance of getting it 100% forgiven. If your lender is at capacity or they're just taking a long time to get back to you and you're maybe 100,001 in the queue, you can go to sba.gov/paycheckprotection/find, and you can type in your zip code and potentially find some PPP lenders around you. We've been scrubbing lists week over week over week to try to find the right lenders for you in case you are not hearing back from your lender. Opportunity Fund is in San Francisco. They're a micro lender. They can lend up to $150,000 for non-customers. They're doing a lot of loans under $25,000 for those of you that just need a quick $10,000 or $15,000, which is awesome. And they're available. So if you like some more information, we can assist you with that. These are non-federally regulated PPP lenders or loan aggregators, where they work with multiple different of lenders, and they can help shop the market for you at no cost. And these were recommended or brought to us by SBA. So they're non-federally regulated, they're non-FDIC insured businesses or lenders or banks, but they can offer triple P either directly or through their channels of referral sources. So some really great resources here. The forms that might be needed for the EIDL. So we talked about the triple P. The forms that might be for the EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the SBA loan, that is directly from SBA, not from lenders. That web portal has reopened for agricultural businesses and individuals that have a loan number that starts with a 2 or have not heard back from SBA when they applied the first time before March 29th. The additional forms that you may need are these forms here. SBA may ask for these, they may not. We have access to these forms so we can help you fill them out if they do ask for it. It's good to be prepared. And then, yeah, so it was a short talk today for updates. There isn't a lot of updates that we would want to bring new to you because there's some legislation being written and we're not privy to it yet. But, and Noah is also on the call. So after Emily speaks, Emily Burgos from Small Business Finance Center for iBank, after she speaks, then we will send it over to Noah and he can speak and maybe give us some updates on SBA. But I'd like to welcome Emily and thank you for joining the call, Emily.
Thanks, Scott, and thanks for having me. I'm glad to have this platform to share more information about what we're doing at iBank. So just to make things a bit more confusing and acronym heavy, I am also the Finance Center, but I am the Small Business Finance Center, and I am at iBank, which stands for the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, which is actually a government agency housed within the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. So since the late 60s, the Finance Center has been responsible for the state small business loan guarantee program, which is essentially the state's version of the SBA. So when things started to really fall apart with the most recent pandemic, the governor announced on the 2nd of April a $50 million infusion into my disaster relief loan guarantee program. The goal of that infusion was to help businesses that cannot access SBA. So either they're not eligible to apply for an EIDL loan or a PPP loan, or they get declined for one of those loans. I can use that $50 million to help support a loan to them for business continuance or to cure economic injury is the appropriate legal term that we use. So what we're doing in this program is coordinating with very specific lenders who are comfortable making these loans, who are interested in making them $50,000 and under. So we're really focused on smaller dollar amounts. And, you know, ensuring that those loans go to folks that, as I mentioned, cannot access SBA. So currently on our website, we list lenders that are active in the program. If you've been on my website recently, you'll notice that there's only 3, and 2 of them are only working with existing clients, and 1 of them is regional only to Santa Barbara and Orange County. So that is not helpful to this group at this time. We've had some lenders come in and out as they are able to access loan funds and then exhaust those loan funds. But I will say that we do have some statewide lenders in the pipeline. So we'll be keeping the SBDC group apprised when new lenders are added to the website, so they can keep you apprised as to whether or not there's folks to apply to get those loans. So in the meantime, what we are encouraging folks to do is to get your paperwork ready. You should have electronically 1 year of personal business tax returns, 3 months of personal and business bank statements, and your year-end financials. All of the SBDC consultants have been briefed on this, so they can make sure that you have your paperwork ready to go when a statewide lender pops up in this program. And again, just to reiterate, these loans are for folks that can't get access to SBA. So either for whatever reason you're not eligible to apply to the SBA disaster resources from day 1, or you get declined by SBA and are not able to access it because you're technically not qualified. And I guess I'll pause for questions, Scott, if that's appropriate, or if you have anything you'd like for me to touch on.
No, I think that was good. Talked about so has iBank done any of these state disaster loans yet?
Yes, we have done a handful of them, but we anticipate before the end of the summer to have thousands of them issued, because we're really encouraging folks to access SBA resources first. Some of the lenders that we're working with are focused on those SBA resources first. Once those are exhausted, then they'll move on to this program. It's not often that we have access to such large dollar federal resources. So we want to make sure as a state we take advantage of those first. My $50 million pales in comparison to the hundreds of billions that are available through SBA right now. We also know that those SBA resources will run out and have a time limit on them. So our program has no time limit. We're fully prepared to come in after the SBA and fill in some of the gaps.
And then when is the official launch of these $50,000 microloans?
It's already been launched. Right now, we're just working to get more lenders who are ready to rock and roll, so to speak, and start entertaining more loans.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Emily. Yeah, we'll keep you on for Q&A. This call
Okay.
goes to 11:30, so thank you very much for that. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Do you want me to hop in and answer some of these questions verbally, or do you guys do that in writing?
I'll go through and ask some of these questions of all the panelists, if that's okay.
Okay.
Emily.
Sure.
Yeah, we could send you some questions too, Emily, if they don't get answered on this call.
Okay. I just want to make sure everyone gets their questions answered.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any that you had seen that you specifically wanted to answer, Emily, right now?
Yeah, I saw a couple people asking about the interest rates. So in our program, the interest rates are set by the lender, but right now what I'm doing is I'm incentivizing a lower interest rate based on the guarantee I provide. So I tell a bank essentially, you know, if you make a loan like this that's eligible for my program, I will guarantee your loss up to a certain amount, which essentially just tells them that they'll get paid a certain percentage if the loan goes bad. So in this program, if they charge an interest rate of prime +1 or less, I will guarantee that loan up to 95%. As their interest rate increases, my guarantee decreases. But again, it's negotiated between you and the lender and usually based on your credit worthiness.
Okay, great. Any new information from SBA regarding documentation for forgiveness for PPP, Noah?
So the short answer is no. We have not had, so we were hoping to get this last week. It has not yet been released by Treasury in conjunction with SBA, but the detailed nuts and bolts, here's how you apply for forgiveness. Here is the exact set of steps or the forms or what will be looked for and what are the rules. Those have not yet been released. A clarification or like a preview of the rules. One element of the rules was released on the Treasury website related to whether or not employees who do not want to return to work, who are offered work from their employer using PPP funds, how to handle that situation as a business owner. And what the Treasury guidance is says that in the rules that will be released, business owners will not be, they won't be punished, or employees that refuse to return to work won't be held against them when going to apply for forgiveness, so long as that employer has made a written offer to the employee, offering them their position back at the same salary, same hours, and that employee has rejected that offer. So long as you've documented that, when you go to apply for forgiveness, those employees who you have that documentation for will be they'll be accepted out of any of the FTE requirements that might go into forgiveness. and what those requirements are. Unfortunately, I don't have. Unfortunately, the agency and Treasury have not yet published those.
Scott, you were giving some advice yesterday for people who want to just be proactive. What proactive advice to track these expenses would you recommend right now?
So a good best practice is if you receive EIDL money or Triple P money, that you would open separate accounts at your business bank of choice. And that way, when the PPP money comes in, it can go directly into that brand new account, so that all the expenses that you spend in that account will be tracked. It'll be tracked at your monthly statement. Banks have really great software to do that a lot faster and easier than we can as humans. So I think putting it into a separate account is an awesome best practice. The other best practice would be to, we haven't created any templates. We haven't seen any templates to help track this, but you can create your own Excel spreadsheet and then kind of just track it, and then work with your bookkeeper and CPA and make sure it's all documented correctly, so that when you do have to go deliver all that to a lender, your lender, that'll all be there for them to see, very clear and concise, so that they can more than likely tell you very quickly if it's 100% forgiven or not.
Scott, could you just touch on, again, I know that it was mentioned already, but for those who are continuing to ask, what are the forgiveness guidelines that we have for PPP for sole proprietors?
So if you look on the screen, for those of you that are asking these questions for forgivability, it doesn't matter if you're a sole proprietor or you are another entity, the forgivability part is the same. It's just how the numbers are calculated that are a little bit different for sole props to other entities. The legislation or the information that we know is that 75 to 100% of your monies in the first 8 weeks, from the time you get the money to after 8 weeks, is spent on payroll costs, which includes employee salaries, compensations, retirement benefits, medical, sick, paid leave, all that stuff, state taxes, not federal taxes, but including in all that calculation of what your payroll costs are, if the money's 75 to 100% of that is spent in the first 8 weeks, it's more likely going to be 100% forgiven. If you want to break it up and you want to spend 75% just on payroll costs and 25% or less on rent, utilities, and interest debt payments, and that's properly documented, then it could be twofold. You could possibly get forgivability on the rent, utilities, and interest debt payments, as you can get forgivability on the 75% or the payroll costs. For a sole proprietor, it's just different on how you calculate it. You take line 31 on your Schedule C, which is your profit or loss line, to see if you made money or didn't make money. And you divide that number by 12 and times it by 2.5, and that's your loan amount, because all Triple P loans are 2.5 times of payroll costs, rent, utilities, and interest expense. Forgivability for sole prop is you take line 31 divided by 52 weeks and times it by 8, and that's how much potentially you could be 100% forgiven in that first 8 weeks.
Thank you, Scott. There's some additional questions regarding who can currently apply for the EIDL. Right now, SBA has limited new EIDL applications to ag businesses, and people can reapply if they had applied prior to the April 29th change in application. I'm sorry, the March 29th. My dates are getting all mixed up. The March 29th change in application from SBA. Any other information on if or when the EIDL will reopen to everyone else?
No, at this time we don't have a timeline or updates about whether that application will reopen or when it will.
So for those of you asking about that, hopefully that answers the question, not the answer that you want, I'm sure. The other question that we're getting a bunch of is reminder or is specifically in regards to automatic deposits in people's accounts. The EIDL, specifically the EIDL advance, allows for up to $10,000, $1,000 per employee to be put into your account. There is no advance notice. It'll just go directly into your business checking account. And the rest of the EIDL application is a loan, and that means that it's in process. Any other bits of information, Sunita or Scott, you guys wanted to provide on that?
No. So the EIDL loan goes directly into your bank account, because when you apply for, the EIDL advance goes directly into your bank account, because when you apply, you're supposed to give your routing number and account number, and then you just wake up one day and that money's in there, like there's like a paycheck or an ACH of some sort, or a wire. It should say SBA D for disaster, and the money will just pop in your account and you can use it. They don't text you, call you, or email you and tell you it's there. It just pops in. The EIDL loan, Noah, do you know if the EIDL loan just wakes up miraculously, it's in there, or do they send you a check, or what do they do?
No, yeah. So roughly what the timeline and what the process looks like is you put in the application, you wait, you get the deposit silently sent to your bank account for the EIDL advance. If you have credit monitoring software, you might see a ping on your credit prior to the advance being deposited. One thing I do let folks know is if they have credit freezes and at any of the big three credit monitoring bureaus, that they should lift those while they have their application in, just to prevent any delays. And then once you have the advance, then you wait again, and then that application moves on for being evaluated for the loan. And when a decision is made on the loan, whether it's an approval or a request for more documentation or a denial, at that point you get a notification email from SBA about that decision. So you get communicated with at the point where a decision has been made around the loan, and there's about 4 or 5 other things that could happen after that email happens. So they send that email, and maybe you have to create an account and then accept an offer, or maybe you have to send in more documentation, or maybe you have to do a modification, or maybe you just get a denial and it has a reason for the denial and some information about how you can appeal a denial, that's attached to that as well. So that's what you can expect in terms of that process. Average timelines, we don't have those at the moment, but I have been seeing a lot more approvals and a lot more funding going out under the EIDL program under this in the past couple weeks. So
great. And just to remind people, the EIDL advance is a forgivable loan, correct, Noah? Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah, the EIDL advance does not need to be paid back, and it is, and the forgiveness portion of that is automatic. It's not like you have to apply for forgiveness for the EIDL advance.
The EIDL advance can be spent any way the recipient sees fit, and the EIDL, the remainder of the EIDL is a loan at 1% directly through SBA. So
3.75%.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
2.75% PPP. Yes.
Yeah, PPP is a 1% annual interest rate, but the EIDL is a 30-year loan with a 3.75% interest rate.
Okay, great. So Toya, hopefully that answered your question. One individual is saying, Natalia is saying the bank is giving us more PPP funds than we need. There was a misleading information on the application form where B of A asked to provide EIDL information, which led the bank to give us more funds than we need to PPP. Can we get the funds, return part of it right away, and still qualify for forgiveness for the 2 months of payroll? ? Also, will that impact our EIDL application if SBA sees that a much bigger PPP loan was taken earlier, even if we can prove that it was returned right away?
So for the second part of that question, no, it won't affect your EIDL application. The other part, whether for having received too much, more funds that you wanted under the PPP, there are no prepayment penalties under the Paycheck Protection Program. And one of the items around, like I said, we're still waiting on the detailed elements around forgiveness, what that looks like, but it was communicated that forgiveness will be proportional. So it's not like you either get it or you don't if a certain percentage of the loan is spent on payroll costs. There'll be some way to calculate proportional forgiveness under that loan. And so you can always return those funds with no prepayment penalties is the short answer if you receive more funds than you anticipated.
Thank you. Rolanda's asking Emily, can I apply to iBank with Emily direct? I have all the information that she needs. All my app is in I've applied, I think he's saying I've applied for EIDL PPP and haven't heard back in more than a month.
So no, you cannot apply with me directly. We have to partner with a lender who's going to make the loan, and then I will come behind and guarantee it. So I would keep an eye on my website. I know you haven't heard back from SBA yet, so technically I don't know if you qualify, but that doesn't mean you can't make application with a lender that's available in your area as soon as they pop up on the website. And if you end up getting the SBA loan, then you withdraw your application.
Okay. Serena is saying, I've received the PPP loan. From what date will SBA determine the number of employees? From what I've heard, a business cannot lay off any employees and must bring back employees that they've laid off to be eligible to have the loan forgiven. From what date will SBA use that number of employees?
So this sort of falls into the bucket of, the guidance around forgiveness and what that looks like, for which there are no good answers or solid answers at the moment. But it's the benchmark is your pre-disaster employee FTE count is what is my understanding of it. But that's also something that we need to wait for the forgiveness guidance on that.
Okay.
Is Heather on the line? And Heather might also have.
Heather, do you have any updates that you wanted to share with everyone?
Does that sound accurate,
No,
Heather?
Noah covered that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that Noah covered that well. I do want to, I'm not along those same lines, but just give updated numbers. I didn't hear that yet, but I think that this is very, very exciting on where we stand. With regards to the PPP2 program, we're currently at 2,378,000 loans for $181 billion. There's still limited funds available for that program. So if you haven't applied and you're on this call, really reach out to your lending institution. If they're not participating, the SBDC can provide you with contact information for another lending institution that will participate in the program. And we've also got a list where you don't have to be a current account holder at that institution. With regards to the economic injury disaster loan, most recent numbers that we've got on that, we have $4.8 billion out the door to over 1.2 million applicants for the EIDL advance. And with the EIDL disaster loan itself, over 40,000 businesses with over $8 billion out the door was the last count, keeping in mind that that was last week. We're hopeful to get updated numbers, but we are working diligently to make our way through the backlog of applications during this unprecedented event.
Okay. We have a lot of questions that are specific to reopening of your business and what the restrictions are, et cetera. I do encourage those of you who are interested in that topic specifically to join our call on Friday from 10:30 to 11:30. We will specifically be talking about human resources, needs, and information for going back to work, how you can protect yourself and your employees. So I do hope that you tune in on Friday for that and ask those questions. I'm going to move on with other questions specifically for the loan products, and let us know via asksbdc.com or through email or our 833 Ask SBDC if there are some questions that we don't get to today. Denise is saying, I received PPP funding, but I'll be the only full-time employee working and have one part-time employee. I did have a total of 4 part-time employees, but the business hasn't reopened in full for all of us. So as long as I meet the PPP loan amount I received using payroll, I can still be completely forgiven having less employees than before? ?
So that's in that category of what are the nuts and bolts of forgiveness that we are eagerly waiting for the Treasury guidance on. So I can't answer that specific question really until we get that guidance about how FTEs will be calculated. I do know that the structure of the PPP program is designed to bring employees back on the payroll. Even if a business is closed, even if the business is not, or has reduced its activity significantly, and so you might have reduced the number of employees that are on your payroll because of all the shelter-in-place orders, but when you receive the funds, the intention is that you go back to employees that you may have furloughed and offer them their positions back. And even if that means they are staying at home and not working, that is what the PPP funds are designed to support. So that's the structure and the purpose and the guidance of the program is to ensure that employees stay on the payroll and or return from having been furloughed or let go.
And if those employees do not want to come back because they're receiving more in unemployment, you need to get that in writing from them, so that way you have the documentation when your lender asks you, did everyone come back or did you rehire everyone? And the reason being that they received more in unemployment, get that documentation. I'm not sure if emails are going to be sufficient, but that might be a way to start. If you email them, they email you back stating that they don't want to come back, or you provide them a certified letter, and just start with that. And if we get more direction, we'll definitely give it out to everybody.
Okay. There are still some people asking, Heather, regarding whether or not the 8 weeks is being talked about being extended, because there's concern that they won't be able to spend it all in time. Any updates on information there?
So again, Anne, thanks so much. That's a great question. We're hearing that daily, multiple times a day. I'm sure Noah can attest to that. But from the guidance that we have from both SBA and Treasury is that 8-week time frame starts at the time of disbursement. There are conversations taking place with our congressional leaders with respect to that 8 weeks, but I need to point out that keeping in mind whether or not you are back open and having customers into your facility or conducting work, the Paycheck Protection Program is designed to pay those employees whether or not they are returning to work. Keep in mind that if you can get, 75% of those funds allocated towards payroll, then the entire amount of the loan is forgiven. So you could be very calculated on how you design your deployment of these funds. Again, keeping in mind, as Sunita stated, documenting that you have tried to get these people to come back to work, even if they've declined to come back to work, if you can pay them, they cannot take both the EDD payments as well as the PPP payments. There's no double dipping from that standpoint. But you as the employer have the authority to go to EDD and say, this person got their paycheck, they can't collect unemployment. And then those funds would be needing to be paid back.
Okay. For those of you that are stating that you have you filed for the EIDL well within the time frame that the application portal was open to all businesses, unless you received a letter of declination directly from SBA, it's still in the queue. So please do not give up that hope on that. That sometimes will be very late, but they are making a lot more progress. In particular, like Noah said, in this last week, we've seen a lot of movement, people starting to get their advances, which is a precursor to the SBA coming back to you and asking for additional information and going through the full loan process. I'm looking for more questions specifically for Emily, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff on PPP. Did you see any, Emily, that you were?
I didn't, but if anything pops up, definitely shoot me an email. I'm glad everyone is so focused on PPP and EIDL, because as I mentioned, that's where we really want people to start.
Okay, great. Uni is asking, are there any business counselors that speak Chinese in the San Francisco Bay Area that can help? Absolutely. Call the San Francisco Small Business Development Center, and we do have advisors that speak Mandarin and Cantonese, and definitely would recommend that you get a hold of them as soon as possible so that you have an opportunity to apply for funds while the PPP is still open. So if you have any difficulty there, Uni, please reach out to us through the asksbdc.com portal, and they'll get you in touch and get you that phone number. But it's sfsbdc.org is the website.
I'll put that number in the chat.
Sandra is saying, I've seen slides about SBA forms I will need for the full EIDL. However, I can't seem to find them. I don't know where to find them on the SBA.gov site.
So they could, I'm not sure where they are on there, if it's like super easy to find, but they can email us at loans@asksbdc.com, and we could send those over. We have them.
Okay, I've had multiple questions come up in the queue regarding cash reserves. Is there any difficulty in applying for these loans if there's money in people's accounts?
Oh, Heather,
Yeah,
like when they first launched the EIDL, they're saying like, if you have a bunch of money in your account, then you might not get qualified. Is there any?
No. So with that said, there's some updated FAQs that just were recently released by SBA and Treasury. They're posted on the website. There's not necessarily a formula that we're using. There has to be a need for these loans, and clearly in our current circumstance, that's the need. If you've got reserves, that doesn't preclude you from obtaining either of these transactions, either the PPP or the EIDL program. From my perspective, and what we heard from Senator Rubio this morning was basically with respect to large corporations that didn't have the need per se for the PPP loan, And so there's some discussion surrounding that. But from the perspective of just having a little bit of reserves, that's not going to preclude you from gaining access to either of these programs.
Okay. So some of these are repetitive, but we'll try to answer them in ways that people are needing them answered. Susie saying, I'm a sole proprietor and receive PPP. How do I officially pay myself to show I've used the PPP for payroll? The same way that they did before, right, Sunita?
Right. How would you normally pay yourself? And that's exactly how you would show it. So, you know, that account, write yourself a check and put payroll if that's how you've done it in the past.
Okay, Aaron is asked, and Heather, you touched on this regarding PPP and unemployment. Aaron saying, I have been approved to receive unemployment. Will I still collect until we start operating even though I received the PPP? My distribution was not included in the PPP calculations because I'm not on payroll.
Sure, so that makes sense. With the EDD, the forms that come out will ask if you have received any compensation for the work performed within, you know, the last 2 weeks, and typically it's a 2-week time frame that EDD reports from. So from my perspective, as long as you're putting, you know, the appropriate responses on that form, you should be fine. If you were not included in your PPP because you were not on payroll, then it would be a reasonable assumption that you could collect the EDD as well as the federal unemployment insurance. But since we're not in that agency or with the state, my advice would be to try to contact EDD. I realize that that's very difficult these days, but we have heard every day from Governor Newsom that they are adding to staff at EDD. So I would continue to try, but my knowledge base on EDD is that it's reported every 2 weeks and there's a space to input any income that you've received.
Okay, Emily, there's been some requests for asking for your contact information. If somebody's interested in an iBank loan, what do they need? Where do they go specifically? You're muted right now.
Thank you. And I'm actually typing in an email for Alan to share. You want to continue checking my website. It's going to be the most up-to-date place for lenders that are currently participating, that have money to make these loans. My staff are not going to have any additional insight. Once they're public, we put them on the website immediately. Now, so Alan just shared an email. That's actually wrong. Let me send a correct one. COVID.
Oops.
My apologies. No worries. You just copied and pasted what I wrote, and that was wrong. We have a standard email. It says it's COVID-19 loan at ibank.ca.gov. It's monitored by staff daily. It's going to be your quickest way to a response. If you have a specific question, just send it in the email. You will get an auto reply, but staff look through and make sure that specific questions were answered, and so they'll circle back and give you your specific answer. I'm on these calls all day, so you're actually going to get a much quicker response if you email the COVID-19 loan email box. I have my top analysts answering questions out of that email box.
And also our SBDC advisors at the Finance Center know about these loan guarantees, and we can also help you with that. So you can email us as ask@sbdc.com. We will let you know exactly what documents are required for the loan process.
The Finance Center team is in contact with the iBank team on a daily basis. So
much to my chagrin, Scott is in direct contact regularly. Another reason why it's probably better that you email the COVID-19 email box, because I'm too busy answering Scott's questions.
Okay. You don't have to go that far. It's okay.
Okay, few more questions here before our time is up. There's somebody, Deborah is asking, what happens if we get the EIDL advance post accepting the PPP? Scott?
If you get the EIDL advance after you get the triple P, then Noah, then the bank wouldn't know about how much advance they got, right? And then they wouldn't subtract it from the total, right?
Well, when you go to apply, my understanding is that when you go to apply for forgiveness, part of the forgiveness process will ask for how much you may have received as an advance, during that application process when you're asking for forgiveness. So, it's not when you receive funds, it's when you go to apply for forgiveness that you'll report how much you received under the EIDL advance, and then the total amount of forgiveness approved under the Paycheck Protection Program will be reduced by however much you received as the advance.
Oh, interesting. So there's no sneaky way of getting around it. Like, if you got the triple P first or the EIDL last, or there's no way around it. They're going to find out.
They're in communication. Okay.
All right. Cool.
All right. Megan's saying for PPP, it states we cannot use a loan for FICA. Does this include Medicare and Social Security?
That's any federal amount is not included. Just your state taxes, not any federal required amounts are included. Just your state.
Okay. Can a business use their ITIN to apply as a foreign-owned business, or is that risky?
So for ITIN,
It doesn't say if it's PPP or not, but I'm assuming.
So this is very tricky. I don't know if you have an ITIN. I mean, you could apply, I guess. I mean, I'd ask Noah or Heather if ITIN is are approved or not, or valid or not.
So foreign-owned companies are eligible provided the workforce is here in the U.S. I think that's kind of the caveat that we really need to concentrate on when we're talking about this.
Or PPP.
Or PPP, correct.
It's different for EIDL.
Okay, and he didn't indicate whether it was for EIDL or PPP. So what's the rule for EIDL and ITIN?
You go for it, Heather.
Go right ahead.
So for EIDL, the ownership of the company, it has to be majority owned by a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
Or authorized. I mean that includes foreign citizen or national. So that includes green card holders.
Right.
John Connolly is asking, where can we find statistics on the iBank's lending results, disaster or otherwise?
That's an excellent question. We don't have statistics available currently because right now we're conditionally approving loans. So we're not able to share statistics until we have documentation that the loans have closed. We publish an annual report with data on all of our loan activities. But because of the kind of the heavy interest that we're seeing in this program, I think it's highly probable that once we have formal loan files, we will start sharing more information on our website. That being said, if you want to call me or email the COVID-19 email box, we can give you a call and maybe answer some more specific questions.
John is a advisor with Scott, so I'm sure he can also reach out to Scott.
Oh yes, reach out to Scott. Give him another reason to reach out to me.
All right.
Okay. Anurag is saying, if PPP and EIDL does not come through because they run out of funds, can we apply for iBank?
So at this point, that's to be determined. Right now, we're walking a tightrope. Frankly speaking, if we come behind and backfill SBA's lack of funding, we run the risk of potentially missing out on future funding. So as of right now, the answer is no. But as they mentioned at the beginning of the call, everything is continually evolving, and the conversation around this is evolving as well.
Okay. We've got another question regarding the 8 weeks. If they are looking to utilize this PPP funds within the 8-week time frame, can they pay bills in advance?
No, they cannot.
Okay. And that doesn't matter if it's rent or utilities or payroll.
That's correct. They're just something that came out, I believe in the FAQs or something on the Treasury that is not allowed.
Okay. Anything else, Noah? Sorry.
No, that I was like, wait, really? Let me look at the Treasury website. Sometimes I
read it yesterday on there's so many different sites. I think it was Treasury.
Okay, if you can get that source and send that to me, I don't know if that one hasn't been crystal clearly communicated. I mean, your answer is in line with my understanding, and it's in line with the intentions of the program as well. I just didn't know if I'd seen that in the FAQ document.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to say something else to keep in mind, just for the participants on the call, is that there is a lot of information out there, and your best resource for that information is through sba.gov and our website, or treasury.gov. Those would be the best resources for any information with respect to the Paycheck Protection Program.
Okay, it's 11:30, but there was an important question that came through that I really want to ask of Heather. Heather, I heard the PPP program will deplete all funds for traditional SBA loans for the rest of the year. Is that the case?
That is not the case. Again, one of those misnomers or rumors that are out there. And then along those lines, part of the CARES Act is to supplement the payments on any current loan, be it 7A or 504 or microloan with SBA. So any current loan, SBA will make those payments for the next 6 months. So really a great benefit there. Also keeping in mind that any newly originated SBA loan will have the payments made, and that's payments being principal, interest, and fees through September 27th of this year. So really, if you're thinking about expanding, I know that this really isn't a time to think about that, but if it was in your sight line about doing in the next couple of months, this is a fantastic time to capitalize on the resources of the CARES Act and those implemented or programs being implemented.
Okay, great. That'll have to be our last question. Thank you all so much for joining today and taking the time. We really hope that you have some good luck these next couple of days with all of these loan products. We are here for you. If you didn't get your question answered, please reach out to us via 833-ASK-SBDC or loans@asksbdc.com. We will answer your questions there. And we will be back on Friday, 10:30 a.m. to talk about HR issues, specifically getting back to work. Thank you, panelists. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, SBA.